In this episode, Sansa faces one of the most devastating blows to her autonomy, being forcibly betrothed to Tyrion Lannister, while Tyrion is among the more sympathetic members of his family. This union represents yet another moment where Sansa's desires are utterly disregarded. However, instead of continuing to see herself as a victim, Sansa begins to grasp the larger game at play. She is still powerless in this moment, but the seeds of resilience and strategic thinking are planted, setting the foundation for her eventual rise. The reality of her marriage to Tyrion. Tyrion Lannister and Sansa Stark. In King's Landing, neither Sansa nor Tyrion is pleased about their impending marriage. Margaery Tyrell attempts to comfort Sansa, reminding her that Tyrion is far from the worst Lannister and suggesting that he might even make her happy, given his reputed skills as a lover. Meanwhile, Bronn advises Tyrion to simply marry Sansa, produce an heir to satisfy his father, and continue his relationship with Shae in secret, allowing him to have both a wife and a mistress while ruling the North. However, Tyrion is doubtful, knowing that Shae will not accept such an arrangement. He also dreads the idea of being despised by his wife, his lover, and the entire North. Bronn dismisses Tyrion's concerns, warning him that trying to please everyone is a waste of time. Tyrion's fears are soon confirmed when Shae bluntly informs him that once he marries Sansa, she will no longer be his lover. This episode marks the final dismantling of Sansa's childhood dreams. Once, she imagined herself as a princess in a perfect marriage, yet reality has proven to be much crueler. This realization does not come as a sudden shock, but rather as a gradual, painful acceptance. She no longer believes in the heroism of knights, nor does she expect a prince to come and save her. Instead, she begins to recognize the necessity of adaptation and resilience, the first glimmers of strategy. Though still passive in many ways, Sansa's increasing awareness of her surroundings signals the beginning of her strategic thinking. Her conversations with Margaery, Shae, and Tyrion indicate that she is absorbing lessons about manipulation, influence, and survival. Though she does not yet take action, this episode serves as an essential stepping stone in her long and arduous journey to reclaim control over her fate. The concept of power and powerlessness. Sansa's storyline up to this point has been defined by powerlessness. However, this episode subtly shifts that trajectory. Though she remains a pawn, she is starting to see the larger game in play. This awareness is the first step toward reclaiming agency. By understanding how power operates, she positions herself for the slow but steady process of transforming from a victim to a player, foreshadowing of future strength. Throughout this episode, there are hints of Sansa's eventual transformation. While she currently has no control over her situation, she is beginning to understand the mechanisms of power. Later in the series, she will use this knowledge to outmaneuver her enemies, form crucial alliances, and ultimately take control of her own destiny. Her time in King's Landing, particularly episodes like this, serves as a brutal yet effective education in survival. The parallel between Sansa and Daenerys. Both Sansa and Daenerys are women navigating a world dominated by men, yet their approaches to power are starkly different. Daenerys wields external strength, using dragons and armies to assert her dominance, while Sansa must rely on subtlety, patience, and court intrigue. This episode highlights that divergence, as Daenerys continues her conquest while Sansa learns how to navigate the dangerous web of political manipulation. The price of survival. Sansa's growth comes at a cost. To survive, she must endure immense suffering, betrayals, and losses. This episode represents one of those painful milestones. Though she is still in chains, she is beginning to recognize what it will take to free herself. Unlike earlier moments where she passively endured, here she is beginning to absorb the lessons she will later use to her advantage. Major events. This episode is filled with political maneuvering, emotional reckonings, and crucial moments of character development. Jon Snow and Ygritte. After successfully scaling the treacherous wall, Jon Snow, Ygritte, and the wildlings, led by Tormund, head toward Castle Black to await Mance Rayder's signal for the attack on the Night's Watch. Later, Jon confronts Orell for cutting the rope that nearly killed him and Ygritte during the climb. Orell dismisses Jon's anger, pointing out that Ygritte isn't complaining because, as a wildling, she understands the necessity of tough choices. He also warns Jon that this very difference is why he will never be able to keep her. During their journey through the woods, a jealous Orell approaches Ygritte, claiming he would be a better match for her than Jon, while continuing to voice his distrust of him. Meanwhile, Jon tries to convince Ygritte that the wildlings' mission is doomed, reminding her that 6 kings beyond the wall have attempted to invade the south over the past 1,000 years, only to be defeated. Wygritte refuses to be swayed, insisting that Jon is one of them now. If they fail, he fails too. Undeterred, she reaffirms her love for him, passionately declaring that if they are doomed to die, they will at least live through each other first. Robb Stark and Talisa. As Robb Stark's army journeys through the Riverlands toward the twins, heavy rain forces them to set up camp, delaying their progress. Catelyn warns that the irritable Lord Walder Frey will see the delay as a personal slight, but Edmure Tully argues that Frey is still getting the wedding he was promised. Catelyn, however, points out that while he is getting a wedding, it is not the one he originally wanted, casting a pointed look at Robb and Talisa, reminding them that Frey had expected one of his daughters to marry a king. Robb counters that Edmure is the most favorable match House Frey has ever received. Later that night, as Robb and Talisa prepare for bed, she reveals that she is pregnant with his child. Robb is overjoyed by the news. Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth. At Harrenhal, before departing, Jaime has a final conversation with Brienne. He acknowledges that he owes her a great debt, not only for protecting him during their journey, but also for giving him the will to live after losing his hand. Brienne urges him to repay her by keeping his promise, and Jaime vows to uphold his oath to return Catelyn Stark's daughters. The following day, Jaime leaves Harrenhal under the escort of Steelshanks and a group of Bolton soldiers, with Qyburn accompanying him to continue treating his arm. Before parting ways, Lord Roose Bolton, preparing to leave for the twins, requests that Jaime send his regards to Tywin Lannister, to which Jaime responds by asking Bolton to do the same for Robb Stark. Meanwhile, Locke, left in charge of Harrenhal, taunts Jaime, slyly remarking that he will take good care of Brienne. During their journey, Jaime questions Qyburn about his past, learning that the former maester lost his chain due to conducting experiments on the sick and dying to better understand illness. Though disgusted, Jaime listens as Qyburn defends his actions, arguing that his knowledge has saved many more lives. When asked how many lives he has taken versus saved, Jaime admits to killing thousands but asserts that by slaying the Mad King, he saved 500,000 in King's Landing, leaving Qyburn surprised. Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen's army advances toward Yunkai, the next major city in Slaver's Bay. Confident in their strength, she and Esser Barristan Selmy believe the city will fall easily, as Yunkai is known for training bed slaves rather than soldiers. However, Esser Jorah warns that Yunkai's defenders are unlikely to face them in open combat, instead relying on their fortified walls and guerrilla tactics to weaken the Targaryen forces. He also reminds Daenerys that conquering Yunkai does not directly further their ultimate goal of reclaiming Westeros. Nevertheless, Daenerys remains resolute, determined to free the city's hundreds of thousands of slaves. She orders Grey Worm to send an ultimatum to Yunkai's rulers: surrender or suffer the same fate as Astapor. In response, a Yunkish envoy, Rosdal Mo-Araz, arrives at Daenerys' camp, carried on a litter by slaves along a path lined with Unsullied. Inside her pavilion, she meets him alongside her dragons, who squabble over the meat she tosses them, and snarl at Rosdal when he approaches too closely. He boasts of Yunkai's long history, claiming that many armies have tried and failed to conquer it. Unfazed, Daenerys remarks that a difficult battle would only provide her Unsullied with valuable experience. Changing tactics, Rosdal offers her an alternative. Yunkai will overlook her attack on Astapor and provide gold and ships to transport her army to Westeros on the condition that she leaves Yunkai in peace. Tyrion, Tywin, and Joffrey. Tywin Lannister enters the throne room in response to a summons from King Joffrey. After a brief exchange of forced courtesies, Tywin pointedly asks why his grandson has called for him. Joffrey demands an update on the small council's activities, to which Tywin replies that the king is welcome to attend the meetings whenever he wishes. Joffrey, however, claims he is too busy and questions why the meetings have been moved to the Tower of the Hand. Tywin explains that the change was made for efficiency. When Joffrey complains about the inconvenience of climbing the steps to attend, Tywin slowly ascends the steps to stand over him, glaring down before sarcastically offering to have the king carried. Visibly unsettled, Joffrey abruptly shifts the conversation to Daenerys Targaryen, surprising Tywin with his knowledge of the exiled princess. Tywin confirms that the reports are true. Daenerys is alive and has hatched the first living dragons in nearly 2 centuries. When Joffrey questions why no action has been taken against her, Tywin dismisses the concern. He argues that the last Targaryen dragons were weak, inbred creatures, and Daenerys dragons are likely little more than curiosities, not weapons of war. Even if they prove formidable, He assures Joffrey that they are far across the world and pose no immediate threat. Tywin then warns Joffrey to listen to his advisors on matters beyond his understanding. When Joffrey protests that he has not been counseled on anything, Tywin pointedly remarks that he is being advised at that very moment and will be informed when necessary. With a slight smile and an even slighter bow, Tywin departs, leaving Joffrey visibly unsettled on the Iron Throne. Their exchange makes it clear who truly wields power in the kingdom.